National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is meeting with families of several Israeli hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza. There's growing pressure for both Israel and Hamas to agree to the terms of a recently proposed ceasefire deal. The proposal includes the possibility of ending the war and releasing the remaining hostages in Gaza. On Monday, Israel confirmed the death of 4 more hostages in Gaza. 3 were older men. They were last seen alive in a video released by Hamas in December. Let's bring in CBS News foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tyab from Tel Aviv. Imtiaz, over the past few weeks, we've heard more about the growing number of people who are hostages and they're dying, these deaths being confirmed. How does that impact the way both Israel and Hamas are coming to the negotiating table?
Hey, Lindsay, yeah, it's absolutely devastating for hostage families as over the past 2 weeks, we've heard of a number of hostages, including just last night, whose remains have been found, not live. And that, of course, is extraordinarily troubling. And this is, of course, putting huge pressure on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to accept that deal. In fact, we've been seeing protests just even yesterday, people standing outside the U.S. Embassy saying, accept the deal, free the hostages, and that's not happened. And so while Mr. Netanyahu is under immense pressure to agree the deal that President Biden outlined on Friday, describing it as an Israeli deal, we still don't have one. Now, there's also the question of Hamas as well. Hamas also under enormous pressure. In fact, the U.S. going to the UN Security Council to call on Hamas to accept the deal. And while we have heard from Hamas saying that they responded positively to the agreement, there's a very clear and defined sticking point that they have with Israel, which is simply this. If they agree to a ceasefire, the word permanent needs to be there. And in the agreement that President outlined already, that word is not there. And so I think until that is, Hamas isn't likely to come to the table, and rather Mr. Netanyahu is likely to carry on with the war in Gaza.
In a new interview, President Biden was asked if he thought Prime Minister Netanyahu was prolonging the war for his own political gain. The president responded by saying, quote, there is, quote, every reason for people to draw that conclusion. How are those remarks being received?
Classic political, some people might say, kind of answer. Look, I think the reality is here in Israel, that is a widely held view that Mr. Netanyahu is putting his own political needs ahead of the needs of the people and the hostages as well. And for those who may not be following the minutiae of Israeli politics, the reason people believe that is that if a deal is reached, many do believe then that the war will end, the hostages will be released, and Israel will go into new elections. This is a country that is demanding change. They have fury not only at Mr. Netanyahu, but also the security establishment and many politicians who they say were asleep at the wheel on October 7th, which allowed that devastating attack to take place on their watch. And they want to have effectively a vote on that. But here's the challenge for Mr. Netanyahu. If he loses, and there's a very reasonable chance he does lose in any hypothetical election, he will then be subject to a series of court trials in which he's been named as complicit in a number of corruption cases. And most legal analysts here in Israel believe that if those cases are to go ahead with him as a civilian, he will not only be convicted, but will go to jail. And so that is why there are many voices here in Israel saying that Mr. Netanyahu is putting his own political survival and indeed his freedom ahead of that of the needs of the hostages and ending the war in Gaza.
Imtiaz Tyab, thank you for your reporting.